Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Card Shop. I'm the big dog, and unfortunately, not as always, I'm not here with my co-host Mike Fruitman today. Check local listings, but at this time, Mike is out keeping our fine Denver Nuggets here locally safe and secure at a Nuggets game at Ball Arena. So I'm doing this solo, and given the topic, it makes a lot of sense that we're doing it on a solo basis. So what I want to talk about today is just about card grading in general, and just where it is in the hobby and what's going on. So, if you're a collector of cards, if you're just truly collecting cards, and unless your wheelhouse is PSA 10 graded cards or BGS 9 5 graded cards, there is no need to have a card graded. Get the card you want. You'll pay a little less if it's not graded. Put it in your collection and enjoy it. So there's no reason to get cards graded. There is a value to that because they're protected and all that stuff. But you can buy a rock solid one touch and your card's as safe as can be in those. And there's no reason to go get them graded for any real purpose at that point. But if you're a buyer and a seller of cards, it's just practical reality today that a graded card of a decent grade is worth more than a raw version of the same card, especially if you're trying to sell it online. I mean, let's be honest. How many times have you been on eBay and someone puts in a, Luka Doncic Prism rookie PSA 10 ? You look at it and all the pictures look like everything's okay. You buy it, they get it sent home, and then you really look at it and there's horizontal scratches on the back or the front. There's a little bit of a soft corner. It's a little more off center than you could see from the camera angle. It's just reality of the situation. Will that card get a 10? Probably not. Could it get a 9? Maybe. But what did you pay for? So, grading has a place. Grading really does provide an opportunity for you to know what it is you're getting. And I hear all the stories, and I agree with them that, there's people who have BGS 9s that they're like, this is a PSA 10. So they bust it, they send it into PSA, and it gets a 10. Then there's people I've seen that have had a PSA 10. They look at it, and it's clearly not a PSA 10. It's off center a little bit. It's like, how did this get a 10? But relatively speaking, you're going to be hard pressed to find a 10 card that is a 7. You're getting a reasonable range of value there. So, if you're getting a 10, you're probably at least getting a 9. If you're getting a 9, then you're probably getting a 9 or a 10, maybe down to an 8.5 if you switch companies. So what you get there is you get some certainty as to the quality of the card. A raw card, people can say all they want on their little ads and stuff. That's all puffery. It'll be what it is. And people are not going to give you a high definition enough photo to really let you get convinced about what that card is. In all honesty, a card that is not graded, that is a 10 level quality card, there's no reason that card shouldn't get sold for the same price as an actual PSA or BGS 10, other than the fact that it's not yet graded and there is some randomity in grading, even though they tend to get it pretty much right. So, if you're out trying to buy and sell cards, especially online, grading your cards has value. So just to give you some context of what's going on, I looked at 2 cards this week just to get ranges of value. And I looked at a base 280 2018 Luka Doncic Prism card, base, not silver, anything else. So raw, recent sales of those, check a local listings, the timing, a raw one was between $500 and $650. Obviously, if it's whack off center or something, it's probably not going to be in that range, but $500, $650. A BGS 9, the baseline, and a PSA 9 both, the baseline's around $600. A BGS 9 gets somewhere around $700, $750. A PSA 9 is getting around $800. A BGS 9.5 is getting between $1,000 and $1,300. A PSA 10, $1,600 to $2,000, and a BGS 10, $2,000 to $3,000. And if you could somehow get a BGS 10 black label, you're talking high dollar, probably above $3,000. So, all these people that'll complain and say, oh man, I shouldn't grade this card. And they're like, I'm going to buy and sell it. So I got a Luka I paid $200 for that's not graded. Well, if you just get a 9 on it because you have a good eye you can spend $100, and if you can wait a period of time, you have the opportunity to make $600, $700, $800, $900 on that card, and really it turns the money around easy. So it's, to me, it's a no-brainer if you're buying and selling and you have a decent enough eye, as we've talked about in past podcasts, to figure out if the card's a 9 or not. If it's at least a 9, send that in to get graded, because the premiums you'll get are most of the times worth what it is if you're able to buy at any reasonable price raw. So, to give another example, Zion base Prism 248 from 2019. A raw is $200 to $300. BGS 9 is $250 to $350. A PSA 9 is $250 to $350. You get a BGS 9.5, you're talking $360 to $600. You get a PSA 10, you're in the $700 to $900 range, and a BGS 10 is like $1,500 to $2,000. And if you get a black label, think about what that value is. So this is all playing into the fact that grading a card is worth it if you have a good enough eye, and you're not going to be sending a bunch of cards in that are coming back as BGS 8s or PSA 8s and all that, but you have to have an eye. And that same eye should let you figure out enough of a range when you're looking at a card online to buy that you can look at it raw. I would tell you should buy your raw cards live and not go online, because the cameras just don't do enough service. But everyone has to make their own calls, and with COVID, it's hard for us to do that. But going to card shops and getting a good eye on a raw card is the best way to get one that can ultimately show up as a good graded card. So that's one facet we wanted to talk about. If you're a buyer and seller of cards, buying raw with a good eye and getting those graded will make you money today. So now let's talk about what happens when you do grade them. So the other aspect of that's happening is, if you're putting a card in today to get graded, unless you're going to pay at least $100 a card at Beckett or PSA, you're going to be waiting 5 to 6 months at best for your cards to get graded. So that's a hell of a long time. Now, is it worth it? Sure, but you're running 6 months of risk on the time for these guys about doing well or not. So you got to go in understanding. If you want to spend the 20 or 25 bucks that you can spend on PSA to get a card graded, that's going to take them 6 months. It's going to take them time also to get it in the system. So you won't know where they are in the system for 2 to 3 months on top of that. So you got that reality. You want to wing it with one of the other ones, like SGC, looks like they're running about 2 months right now. CSG, the new guy, their times look like they're running around SGC, but they also have a limit on what kind of cards are grading right now. So, you got to be careful what you get. My mind, PSA is solid. You send a card to PSA, I think you have the highest chances of getting a 10. Now, is that PSA 10 going to be worth as much as a BGS 10? These days, probably not, but those things ebb and flow with time. I can tell you it's a lot harder to get a BGS 10. I've gotten hundreds of PSA 10s from grading, and I have never gotten more than a couple BGS 10s in any submission I've had, with hundreds of PSA 10s instead. So it's a hard go. And I recommend that you do your homework and figure out what makes sense to you. But if you're putting cards into grading right now, it's going to be a while. So be patient. Expect it to take a while, and build up your inventory the way you should. My buddy Nate Burns, one of the smart guys I think in this industry that's savvy, he's sending a couple hundred cards to PSA every week for, as long as I can remember, he's been saying it. And guess what? It took him forever, but now they're starting to flow back into him, and he's getting good results. And he was able to get some in when the bulk type order was a $12 order. So much kudos to him. Other people are doing the same thing. Hell, I was doing it. I was sending way more, and not nearly as often as Nate was. And I'm starting to get some of those back, and they're starting to pay off. And there's a lot of 10s in there that have a lot of value. And it doesn't take many 10s in an order to pay for the entire order relative to their raw value. So take the chance. In 6 months, some players are going to ebb, some players are going to flow. The market's not going anywhere, it looks like, for a while. So I think the opportunity's there. So again, I think you can take a shot at that. So the reality is, what's going on with PSA and Beckett right now is they're getting swamped with graded card grading requests. I mean, their backlogs are in the millions of cards. PSA is making a lot of money. They're raising prices to slow down the onslaught of volume, and people are still sending cards in. It's a crazy time in the market. So, if you look back 5-6 years ago, graded cards were a thing, but they were a niche relative to all the different ways you could get a card in the market. Nowadays, man, graded cards, that's the standard. And I think what we're going to see over the next 6 months or so is we're going to see a huge swing in value from where we are today. And when I say swing, it's going to be what cards are worth the most. And, this is a hobby where scarcity is the value. And again, right now, supply and demand's playing off, and there's just not enough cards for everyone that wants them because the hobby's so hot. But when it settles down, what's going to have value long term is going to be the good stuff, right? So in classic terms of a card, a 1 of 1 is unique and can be valuable. A RPA of 99 is worth more than an unnumbered RPA because of scarcity. There's only so many of them. That's going to be what I think happens with graded cards as well. I think, in a world where no cards are graded cards are valuable. But in a world where all cards are graded, only the well-graded cards are valuable. And I think what we're seeing, all this backlog that PSA and Beckett has, 70% of that backlog is ultra modern. So 2017 and after, and really 2018 and 2019. So I think the amount of grading's happening, I think if you don't have a PSA 10 or a BGS 10 of somebody that you think's big, but like Luka or Zion or something like that, then you should be trying, in my opinion, if you're thinking of a time to sell them, I'd sell them now, because I'm going to give you some numbers here in a minute just to give you a perspective on what's going on. Because the number of those that'll be here in 6 months is going to be greater than the number that are in the market today. And just the basic rule of supply and demand is going to drive that price down or not let it get driven up as more of those come back into the market. So just to give you some perspective, and again, this is what's already been graded. If you don't know how, go get your Beckett subscription and get your PSA subscription and go utilize their pop reports. It tells you how many of those cards they've graded, so you know what you're up against and what grades they've gotten. So just for example, you look at that same Luka Doncic 18 base 280 at Beckett, they've graded somewhere around 5,500 of them as of when I checked the list. Of those 5,500, 125 got a 10, including black labels. 2,500 of them got a 9.5, and 1,500 of them got a 9. So first of all, what it tells you is most people that are sending these cards in, 80% of them knew they had a pretty solid card and could get at least a 9. So if you're sending a card in and you don't have confidence it's a 9, guess what? You're up against 4,100 people who got a better grade than you, and you're up against it. So you need to be confident going in. So, looking at PSA, they've had 28,000 Luka base prisms submitted. There are 16,000 PSA 10s and 11,000 PSA 9s. You go back to the scarcity and why a BGS 10 is worth more than a PSA 10. Well, there you have it. Out of 5,500 BGS cards, 125 got a 10. Out of 2,800 PSA cards, 1,600 got a 10. So your chances of getting a 10 are better, but they're vastly different systems, and the grading is relative. Now, do I think all 1,600 of those PSA 10s would get at least a BGS 9.5? I think most of them would. But do I think all 2,500 of those BGS 9.5s would get a PSA 10? I doubt it. I think some of them will end up being a 9 and some of them will be a 10. So you got to look at your values and weigh them. But again, that's 34,000 Luka Doncic rookie cards, just base prisms, 260 or 280, have been graded already. And there's monumental backlogs at Beckett and PSA. So you tell me what the flood, when 70% of the backlog that they're seeing right now is ultra modern, 2017 and after, and that many, 24 or 34,000 cards already been graded to those guys. What do you think the next wave of cards are? It's going to be more Lukas and more cards like that. So these numbers are going to get blown up. So the value of all these cards, it's going to dilute out, and only the good stuff will be valuable. That's just basic supply and demand and what's accessible. So if you look at Zion, there's at Beckett, 12,500 of his raw 248 prisms have been graded. 700 got a BGS 10, 8,600 got a 9.5, and 2,600 got a BGS 9. Again, most of the cards, over 80%, end up grading 9 or better. So the people that are sending them in, they kind of know what they're doing and they're getting it right. And the quality of the card company is pretty good. So on the PSA side, 29,000 of his rookie cards have already been sent in. Again, just like with Luka, 16,000 have gotten a PSA 10 and 12,000 have got a PSA 9. So both of them, it's easier to get a PSA 10 than it is to get a BGS 10, obviously, from just the math and everything else. So that's why those values are higher. But again, 42,000 Zion rookie prisms have been graded. So if you're sitting on a bunch of raw Zion cards, I would get them in now if you think they can grade at least a 9 on PSA or at least a 9.5 on Beckett. But if they're less than that, you need to get them off your hands now, because my guess is, unless you're a collector, that those graded cards are going to be the value play, and the high end of the grading is really going to be where the money is. So you think of these comparisons. So Michael Jordan's 86 Fleer, number 57, the standard that every basketball card collector has to have in their collection. 30,000 of those have been graded between BGS and PSA. 30,000. So Luka and Zion have already had more of their cards graded both, and there's probably at least that many, if not more, that are in the current backlog. So the Michael Jordan rookie card, there are 6 BGS 10s, there are 315 PSA 10s, and there are 500 BGS 9.5s. So you do the math, that's, there's less than 1,000 of the 30,000 cards. So what, 3%, a little over 3%, that actually have a grade of 10 that are gem mint cards, true gem mint. So you think about that, that's scarcity. So there's 1,000 out of all those 86 Fleers that were printed on Michael Jordan that have that rating. And, he's the GOAT. So, that value looks like it's pretty solid. And is there craziness of supply demand right now with people wanting the card? Sure there is. The Last Dance is still lingering and everything else, but that card holds value. These other ones where there's, we don't know how many are in this backlog that PSA and Beckett has, but it's a lot. So, in my mind, if I'm going to long hold anything that's Zion, Luka, anything in 2018 and 19 specifically, I'm long holding 10s, maybe a few 9.5s that have some 10 subgrades, especially if it's a 10 centering. The rest, I'm getting rid of them. You can go look at what I'm doing right now. Almost all of my cards for sale at Golden, ComC, you name it, all those auctions are of cards that are PSA, BGS 9s, PSA, some lower level PSA 10s, and then a lot of BGS 9.5s that don't have 10 centering. Why? Because I firmly believe that in a world where every card's graded, only the 10s are going to have the real value that holds, because they're going to be the most scarce of the list. So, we all have to make our own decisions in this hobby. And if you're a collector, again, throw it in a one touch and move on. Enjoy it. There's no reason to spend the money. If you need to have it graded, hell, put it in the slowest you can get. Be patient. Let it get graded and get back to you. And then you have a card that you didn't spend a whole lot of extra money on, and it's got that nice holder that you like to see it in. So that's a little advice from me. I'm doing what I'm doing in the hobby. If you're not making money in it right now, you're not trying very hard. And, do your homework. Listen to some of our past podcasts that talk about how to get a card graded. Know how to do it. Don't pay someone else to do it for you. Again, my buddy Nate, he's all over this. Don't pay some Joe down the street to go clean up your cards and send them in for you. Learn how to do it yourself, because then you know that's your card that got sent in. If you're sending in 100 base Luka prisms and you're in an order with 150 others, how do you know somebody didn't decide they like the ones that got graded highest, and you got, sorry, all yours were 9s, we got all the 10s? You don't have any way of controlling that unless you do it yourself. So, do your homework, do your studying, understand what this market looks like, look at the population reports, and have at it, guys. It's a great hobby, and it's having a lot of fun right now. I've been around for 50 years, and this is the hottest and the best I've ever seen the hobby. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun still. And there's a lot of juice left in this squeeze. So enjoy yourselves. I hope everybody has a good day. And thanks for listening to The Card Shop.